Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Well, this week's video is something I've been working on for a long time, and I think I finally got the details all figured out. At least I hope I do. I call it the ladder chair. But before we get the ball rolling, I want to give a special thanks to our new friends at Fine Tools for sponsoring this video. Let's get started. Alright, so we're going to get started by using some 1-inch square tube 063 material. And I'm starting to cut everything to length right here. And I'm using this new 14-inch metal cutting saw by Fine called the Slugger. Really a nice saw, very adjustable, really heavy-duty material. The saw itself is very heavy and cuts very smooth and very nice. So these are just some of the pieces that I'm getting cut to length here, you know, straight cuts and 45s. And during the process of cutting all those, I take them over to the belt sander and deburr everything. And now back to the cutoff saw to finish up all the pieces that I think I'm going to need. You know, I did my math on this thing and came up with every possible scenario, size, angle that I thought I would need for this. And for the most part, it was all pretty good. There was just a couple of pieces that I had to cut and add in a little bit later, but for the most part, I got everything cut, and we're ready to start assembling this thing. One thing I want to note is how deep this chip tray is on this saw. You can just see it collects just about everything. It's very surprising. And there it is, all the pieces. We're ready to go. Ready to start assembling. And we're going to be using the Everlast Power iMig 205, and I'm going to set the settings at about 17 volts and running about 250 on the wire feed. Now I'm starting the assembly by using this Yost corner vise, which is very handy. It makes for a perfect 90-degree angle, and by welding this thing together like this and getting everything, it is like perfectly right on the money, and it really speeds up fabrication. So this is the probably the first part of 4 pieces I'm going to need for this chair, and as you can see, I'm just welding them all together and then taking the flap disc and grinding everything you know, flat and smooth. And this is the second part of 4 pieces, and you can see how everything, you know, I pre-cut everything and everything just fits perfectly. I'm really pleased about that. There's no adjustment, and so I'm just, you know, welding these things all out. And I'm just going to repeat the process here for all 4 legs, and we're going to get that part of it done. Alright, so before you start actually assembling this thing, I wanted to close off the ends right here with some end caps. And what I've got here is I just happen to have some 1 1/4, 1/8 inch thick bar stock, flat bar stock that I wanted to cut out about 3/4 of an inch by 1 inch long pieces to fit just inside the tubing right there. And then I just want to weld those in solid and then grind them flush, and it made it you know, makes it look for a nice solid clean finish. Yeah, got them all cut out, took them over to the belt sander and just you know, cleaned up the edges and made it so they fit in the hole really nice and clean. You'll see that here just in a minute. I just used this little magnet right here to stick them in place. It actually worked really well, and just went ahead and tacked them in a couple places. And then I just started stitch welding them out all the way around. The material at the very end of the tubing is really thin. I didn't want to burn through, so I just took my time, did a little stitch welding, and then took the flap disc and just ground everything down nice and clean. And I did that with all 8 pieces, and everything worked out really well. So I'm starting the assembly right here, and this is the important part, at least for me. This is kind of, I need to get everything nice and perfectly square. This is where the chair actually starts to come together here a little bit, and I just want to be sure that everything is nice and square. That way when the chair hinges, everything lines up nice and smooth. So once I got everything in pretty good shape, I just welded those corners out. I didn't want anything to move around. And then here we go. Here's the assembly. Now I've put these clamps on both sides right here, and they're going to stay on there for a while at least until everything gets welded together and completely assembled, and then the hinge gets put on. Then the clamps will come off, and there'll be no chance of anything moving during this part of the build. You can see that everything is going together. I'm pretty pleased with the way everything is going together. Everything is lining up nice and square. That doesn't happen with me all the time. There's always a problem somewhere along the line, but this is coming together pretty good. These are the Backrest Supports. The backrest is going to be about 7.5 inches wide, and I'm going to put these 1 inch down from the top and then 7.5 inches apart right there. And once I got those right where I wanted them, I just tacked them into place. And once they got it figured out, weld them out. I want everything completely welded out at this point. Everything's fitting nice and square, and I don't have any adjustments to make, and so far so good, and I'm liking the way it's working. All right, so here's the hinge, and there's no second guessing this. It's either go or no go, and I put it on there and tacked it in, put several tacks in it, top and bottom, and hopefully when I take these clamps off, this thing works pretty good. This is the moment of truth. Take these clamps off, nothing moved around, and perfect. I'm really happy with that turned out. So with that said, let's go ahead and finish that. I didn't want to risk any chances of anything moving around, so the first thing I did is get right on that hinge and weld that thing solid all the way across, and that's going to guarantee now that nothing's going to be moving around. I'm just using that fine angle grinder with a flap disc. Those things, I like those trigger handles, man. You guys know I do. I've got all my grinders are that way. Those things work out really well. So now we're getting ready to put the steps in, and what I'm needing to do is cut out this angle iron. This is 1/2 inch angle iron, 1/8 thick, and I'm going to be needing to put that in the center, and this is where the steps are going to go in, at least 2 of the steps anyway. Everything has got to fit in there nice and level, and that's what I'm doing right now. Be sure everything's where it needs to be. And adjusting it, I'm going to be dropping those plates in there, and I just want everything to fit nice and perfect. And this is kind of interesting here, the longer pieces here, I actually notched the corners to allow them to fit in there. Small piece of angle iron, small little notches. It was kind of cool. That worked out really well, by the way. Yeah, I do this a lot with bigger pieces of angle iron to make 90-degree corners, and this worked out pretty good. Once everything's nice and square, I'm welding things through. And as you can see, I'm welding the frame together here actually in the center, but leaving a small little gap where it comes together. And I'll do that on both sides, and this is going to assure that the frame now is not going to move at all in any direction. And then I'm just taking my cutoff wheel and cutting right down the center on both sides right there, and that's going to now free that up and allow this thing to move and hinge properly. As you'll see right here, this is the way it works. Pretty clean, pretty happy with that. So the next step is to get these steps fabricated. I'm just using some diamond plate. This is a 1/8 inch thick mild steel. During that, the plasma cutter produces a little bit of dross on one side of the cut, and it's just easily removed with just a chisel and a hammer. Now putting the plates in, you can see they fit in there pretty nice. You might notice that back plate is upside down, and it's there for a reason. When I want to flip this chair up into the ladder position, I want all 3 pieces of the diamond plate to be looking like they're face up, and so that one is face down when the chair is closed, and then when it's open, all 3 pieces are facing up. Once I got them into position, I just welded them out. Right here I'm just creating a couple of little tabs for the seat itself, and they're just going to go on the upper part and the back side, and I'm going to weld those on there, and I'll be able to screw the wood part of the seat to that, and then the rest of it's going to get screwed to the strap in front right there you see in the plate. I'm using these little mag squares to hold these. These come in different sizes. I got them from really small ones to really big ones, and they work perfectly for situations like this. Just holds everything perfect for you. Just a flap disc, take off the weld on the top side. Then I'm just cleaning the whole thing up with just an air grinder and a really smooth disc to get all the BBs off and anything that might be. And so now this is the handle extension that I'm going to put in this thing. It's going to go in one handle, and this is going to be pretty cool. This is 3/4 inch square tube stock, and it's going to be going in the 1 inch square tube.
And the only thing about that is it fits kind of sloppy because if it was 1/8 thick 1-inch tube, the 3/4 fits really nice, but because it's 0.63, it's a little bit sloppy in there. So I got these little, I don't know, they're button pins, if you will, and this is what we're going to use to raise and lower the handle. But I got a couple of extra ones and drilled a few extra holes on the back side, and that's what I'm going to use to apply pressure to the backside inside of the 1-inch tube to make it the 3/4 a little bit more firm and not so sloppy coming up. So there they are. They're pretty cool. And so here's how I'm going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and I'm marking the holes for this thing to slide in. And once I get it marked, I'm going to drill it out. And I got to say, I'm pretty excited about the way this thing works. This was kind of a last minute thing I decided to do. And you can see here it is, and it just slides right in there and works pretty good. So right now I'm going to skip over to making the wood seat and the backrest, and I'm using some 1-inch alder I picked up at the wood supply store. I've never worked with this stuff before, but it's fairly lightweight and really nice to work with. And because this bench is going to need to be 18 inches by 16 inches, they didn't have a piece big enough, so I'm having to cut these into small pieces, and then I'm going to just glue everything together. And I think that's going to work out pretty good. I've done that in the past before. And here it is. This is just some Titebond wood glue. And definitely get everything covered, all the edges, all the corners, and be really generous with the glue. And once I got all that done, just glued everything there and clamped it all together. You know, in case you don't know, if you can't just clamp everything from one side. You got to put clamps on one side and the other. It kind of, bows it, and this way it draws it back together and keeps everything flat. Well, that's drying. I pulled out the fine shop vac dust control system and just cleaned up around the table saw table and got everything cleaned up. I was done with that for now, so just got that out of the way. You can see how easy that is to just remove and put away. Meanwhile, this is all dried. I just started with a belt sander and went in there with about 40 or 60 grit to take the glue off and get the high spots off, and then got a palm sander and worked my way through the grits, with about 100 on up to about 220. And once I did that, I got everything cut to the size I needed. There's a little bit more things we got to do right here. Once this gets cut to the right size, I got to notch out around where the square tube goes in the back part. And with that, I just got the jigsaw out and took care of that. A little bit of dry fit, and you can see that I'm hitting the weld on both sides. And so I'm just going to take that corner off on each side, and I think that's going to make everything fit in there nice and smooth. And to do that, I'm just using this multi-tool from Fine. And that did the job perfectly. Got right in there and made some nice quick cuts, and I was able to clean that up really nice. And I did that on both sides. Fit in there nice. I like it. Once I got everything all fitting and looking good, I took my palm sander with that quarter rounding over bit and went all the way around both sides and softened up the edges there. And from that point, I was able to get my palm sander with some really fine 220 and go over everything, and everything is nice and flat and nice and smooth. And I repeated the process here with the backrest. Just did the same thing. Got both pieces ready to go, ready to accept some stain. So I chose this orange type of stain right here because that's the color of the Fine tools, and I put that on. It worked out pretty good. I like the color, and once I got that done and that dried, I'm putting a 2-part epoxy coating on the top. And that's like a bar top coating. Once you mix it thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly, you got to mix it for 15-20 minutes. And I kind of went overboard right here and pour a little bit too much on there, so I had to mop some of it off of there. But once I got that part of it done, nice even coat on the backrest and the seat right here, and made for a really nice job. Now here's where I'm finishing up that handle extension right here. I thought about it. I was trying to get the best way to do this, and so this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start by drilling a hole in here, and I need to cut a notch all the way from the top down to that hole right there. about 1/4 of an inch wide, a little bit wider, and so I just used a thickness of felt marker there, and then took my cutoff wheel and just cut between it. And once I did that, I just kind of cleaned things up, the edges, inside and out, and gave it a little bit of room, deburred it with as much as I could with a file. And then this is the little tag, little handle, if you will. And this is roughly about 3 inches square by 1/8 inch thick material. And this is what I'm going to use to put on for the handle that's going to raise and lower the extension bar here. And I chose to use a TIG welder on this because I wanted a really nice, fine, tight bead in there. I didn't want any splatter or anything. And I was able to fuse this together without any filler rod. I thought I was going to have to use some filler rod, but the metal was nice and clean, and it fused in there really good, and that was perfect for me. It left a really kind of a small bead on both sides, and that's kind of what I was looking for, and that worked out really well. And to finish it off, I just needed to put an end cap in there, so I did this similar process as I did earlier with the legs of the chair. And again, I was able to almost get all the way around this thing, fusing this out. I did have to add just a tiny bit of filler rod right there, but for the most part, I got all the way around. It fused in there and filled up really nice. And then just ground everything nice and smooth with the angle grinder with a flap disc. And test drive here works perfect. So again, a last minute decision right here. I thought, why not? Put some wheels on this thing. It's really not that heavy, but it maybe is a little awkward to move around. So I got these little casters. I thought that'd be perfect. Last minute decision. Put these little casters on the back. Makes it for easy rolling around. So now I'm getting right down to the very end right here, and I realized that I needed some sort of a latch to hold it together when it's in the seat mode, and then when you want to get it to the ladder mode, release this latch, and you'll be able to flip it up. So that's what I'm doing right here, and this is something that I just, again, last minute thing I thought about. This seems to work pretty good idea for me. Kind of matches the ruggedness of the whole chair deal too, the way it fits. That's just some final details right here, getting things shaped up the way I want it. Just some final cleanup around the rest of the area that I was last working on. And it's time to put the seat on. So what I'm doing is I'm just drilling out right now, drilling the holes out for the seat and the backrest before I get it installed. And that way, when I paint it, everything will be done and painted, and then it'll be ready to install, and all the holes will be drilled, and I won't have to be doing that after the fact. So, and there it is. I'm painting it fine gray, and to match the orange and gray colors. And then this is the seat. And you can see I'm putting that on. I just drilled and just putting some screws in there, and that's going to hold that in there really well. The problem I had in the front, as you can see, I got a little angle drill here that I've had for a long time. I've never used it. I couldn't get the drill in there, but that worked out really well. And then the backrest. Screw that on. A couple really small details here, and this thing is just about complete. Added some little rubber end caps for the top to make it cleaned up. And of course, a fine sticker on the handle. And there it is. This is complete. There's the chair. Flip the latch. Becomes a ladder. A little safety feature added at the last minute there. Raise the extension handle, and all 250 pounds of me all the way up to the very top, no problem. Down goes the handle, safety latch, and roll it away. And there it is, the ladder chair is complete. I gotta say, this is not a very practical project, but it is a hell of a conversational piece, and I had a great time building it. A special thanks to Fine Tools for providing the tools it took to build this project. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more videos.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.